And this church, if the allegations are true, is using lawbreakers, and the worst of it, it's illegal children to break our laws and to get rich. The independent report on the Mike Bickle abuse allegations has been released, and I am heartsick. Mike Bickle, founder of the International House of Prayer, Kansas City, groomed and sexually abused 17 women. Some of them were minors, according to the independent investigation. In some cases, the abuse constituted rape. A former staff member posted on X, "Today marks a new season, accountability." Yes, accountability. More and more churches and church leaders who have been using children for evil, even criminal purposes, are being exposed. Long overdue housework is underway, it seems. Hello and welcome. I'm Joanne Jolee. So regarding Mike Bickle, in 2023, women started coming forward with accusations. From the 68-page report, we have been able to identify and interview 32 survivors who were sexually abused or experienced sexually abusive misconduct during their time at the International House of Prayer, Kansas City. The credibility of this report is founded on the collective and corroborating testimony of the experiences of the victims and witnesses. It is not reliant on any single experience or victim, but rather on the consistent and overlapping accounts that paint a comprehensive picture of the systemic issues and misconduct within the organization. The corroborated accounts provide a powerful foundation for advocating for accountability, transparency, and meaningful reforms. The report said that the response by Bickle and his leadership team was deliberate indifference, and they discouraged the victims from involving the police. No surprise there. But Jolee Roy's interviewed one of these women. She had been anonymous until now. Her name is Deborah Perkins, and I want to highlight a couple of things that really shot out at me. I saw this interview as a primer really on what friends and families of survivors can do to best help when a survivor breaks her silence. When you get that explosive news that shatters everything you've known and believed about people in your circle, people that perhaps you've held in high esteem. So first thing, and this is really a warning to parents, usually victims of child abuse are vulnerable due to instability at home, girls having poor relationships with their fathers, and they're vulnerable to the grooming of a kind, fatherly figure. But what was shocking was to hear Deborah describe her childhood in glowing terms. Absolutely the best family, happy home, loving relationships with both of her parents, and despite these optimal home life conditions, she was abused in the walls of a church. How did Bickle manage that? Witnesses would often see Bickle during church services and prayer meetings grab girls by their throats, kiss them on their faces, ruffle their hair. This behavior, masked as innocent affection, was a calculated tactic to desensitize his victims to physical contact, gradually pushing boundaries until they were normalized. So it happened in plain view. I would hope to see the changes they're going to implement to create that safer and more supportive environment. I think that we may tend to think sexual abuse can't happen in our church, but that's the very way of thinking that makes it possible. We have to change this thinking to, this can happen. This might be happening right now. As a friendly volunteer is intentionally grooming our children, and even you, so don't let your child or your grandchildren fall prey. As a parent, it's your responsibility to protect them. So here's just a few sensible, critical safeguards. 1, thorough criminal background checks. No physical contact, adult to child. Children never to be alone with the adult. 2 adults in the room, doors open, and the parent or a family member dropping off, picking up the child so you can confirm that these standards don't slip. Deborah talks about a waking up process. Typically, child abuse survivors take 20 years to be able to speak openly the way she has. They literally do fall asleep. It's an emotional coping mechanism. The survivor has to come to terms with the dark truth of what really happened to them. They were abused. It was not their fault. They have no guilt. They have to realize that evil was normalized. They were victims. And it also takes the survivor's friends and family members time to wake up too. These are shocking allegations. Many people can't, or they won't, because it's going to cost them something. They're going to lose if they believe this. And it really is another reason why many survivors don't speak, because they're going to be called a liar, which now adds another layer of pain for them. But I think one of the most important things that Deborah said when she described telling a childhood friend, she said that he held her story with profound kindness. And this is exactly what you need to do when your friend comes to you as a survivor and blows your mind and shatters your perceptions. you take that story and you hold it with profound kindness. You know, in that moment of shock, you may not know what to believe. You still need time to consider everything and apply discernment. Discernment, that requires you to step back. You've got to reassess everything that you think you know. Evil poses as light. You're going to have to analyze the accusations and take a fresh look at all the persons in question. If they're guilty, you're going to start to see incongruity, things that previously may have struck you as inconsistent or odd about the person. You know, you dismiss them then, oh, that's just how they are, that's them, that's how they roll, you know. But now it's going to make a bit more sense, and it becomes part of a behavioral pattern that you were not tuned into. And remember, whatever information the survivor gives to you, there's so much more. The survivor is only going to reveal enough information, hopefully, for you to get it. Some things are just too horrible to talk about casually. It's even quite possible that the survivor doesn't even have everything herself yet. They haven't pulled together all the fragments into a nice, neat, coherent summary of things. And survivors are heroes. Look at them as heroes. They've suffered through hell and fire. They shut down in life in some way to survive until they get woken up. And they come to terms with the truth, and they develop a spine of steel and a strength that can only be built by emerging from that kind of suffering with a heart of gratitude and love. And some people say, why does God allow these things? Well, that's his business. What did he say to Job? Who are you? Who are you to question God? But Deborah said this. She knew that he was in the darkness with her. And someone who's been in the darkness and felt the Lord there with them knows they're especially blessed. They know they're loved. And listen to what this hero has to say.
I've seen my Jesus through the body of Christ, and that has been stunning. Just about as stunning as the evil that's been done. It's like when Jesus says in Matthew 13 that the wheat and the tares grow up and mature together. I'm seeing this beautiful righteousness of care, of kindness, of love, of support. And then at the same time, the wickedness is it just takes your breath away with how evil it is. So I think I'm seeing the beauty of relationship in the body of Christ as the most precious thing. I want to move slower in life and count every time I'm with someone to be able to honor them, to love them, to be with them. I just feel like I'm different coming through this, and I want to live differently as I move forward. I don't know exactly what that will look like yet, but I have new rhythms with Jesus now, and it's slower, and I have more capacity. So I've seen him through his body, and it's been a unique beauty to see.
So while we're on the subject of vulnerable children and predators in the church, we know that God's heart is toward the wounded and the suffering. As you do to the least of these, you do to me, and suffer the little children to come to me, yes? Well, several months ago, the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which we know as ICE, posted an urgent alert regarding almost 300,000 children missing within the borders of the United States. ICE must take immediate action to ensure the safety of UCs, that's unaccompanied minor children, residing in the United States. Based on our audit work, and according to ICE officials, UCs who do not appear for court are considered at higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor. Although we identified more than 32,000 UCs who did not appear for their immigration court dates, that number may have been much larger had ICE issued NTAs to the more than 291,000 UCs who were not placed into removal proceedings. By not issuing NTAs to all UCs, ICE limits its chances of having contact with UCs when they are released from HHS custody, which reduces opportunities to verify their safety. Without an ability to monitor the location and status of UCs, ICE has no assurance UCs are safe from trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor. What a disgrace. And further, yesterday, the Lutheran Church was accused of money laundering using illegal children. Lutheran organizations are defending their work as the hundreds of millions in tax dollars given to help settle illegal immigrant children in the United States comes under the microscope of Elon Musk and the Trump administration after Lieutenant General Michael Flynn alleged their involvement in money laundering. Now it's the Lutheran faith. This use of religion as a money laundering operation must end. Lutheran Family Services and affiliated organizations receive massive amounts of taxpayer dollars, and the numbers speak for themselves. These funds total billions of American taxpayer dollars. According to the report, the Lutheran affiliated organizations received $600 million in public funding in the space of 3 months. And this is what jumped out to our new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which is doing basically a line item check on where our tax money is really going. Anyway, the Lutheran Church, which goes by Global Refuge, they responded. Global Refuge condemns in the strongest possible terms the false allegations lodged against our humanitarian work. As a faith-based nonprofit, we have faithfully walked alongside legally admitted refugees and immigrants for more than 85 years. And then they do it. They use and misquote Jesus. Global Refuge characterized its activities as consistent with the directive laid out in Matthew 25:40, when Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." Okay, we absolutely help the poor and the needy. The wounded and the suffering are next to God's heart. But in this case, the least of these that Jesus was referring to was his family, his brothers and sisters. These were the wounded and the suffering. We don't get to put aside the law. And this law, it's embedded in the 10 Commandments. Remember the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. 6 days you labor, you do your work. The seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no work. Neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. All throughout the Old Testament, we see over and over that any foreigner living amongst the Jewish people had to obey all the laws. They had to keep the Sabbath. They had to observe the festivals, no matter what culture that they came from. And if they didn't, 6 days may the work be done, but in the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever doeth any work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. Pretty stiff penalties for disobeying the law. And in this new covenant era, our call to be subject to the laws of our country are restated. All foreigners who wish to live amongst us. And until I became a US citizen, I was a card-holding foreigner. All foreigners must obey the laws. This is biblical. So the foreigner living with us is not the least of these, as Jesus used in that phrase. It is not the people who broke our laws to live amongst us. And this church, if the allegations are true, is using lawbreakers. And the worst of it, it's illegal children to break our laws and to get rich. Now, my CPA husband, who has over 40 years of tax expertise, went through their Form 990 for me and gave me a list. And he said, if the allegations are correct, then they are in fact involved in money laundering and using illegal children to get massive grants. So he pointed out a few things. The Form 990 refers to those whom the charity provided services to as refugees. Now, if those provided services were illegal aliens, I believe the actions rise to a level of a criminal case. He added, if the allegations are correct, the program services statement they gave was not truthful and indicates that the charity violated US law by abiding and abetting criminals in the United States, i.e. individuals who came into our country illegally. If it's true, there is evidence to revoke the company's not-for-profit status and pursue criminal charges. And finally, he noted the organization has several highly compensated individuals. We have the CEO earning over $600,000. The church is not doing what it's called to do regarding the least of these, Jesus' brothers and sisters. The collections taken by the early church were for the least of these, the suffering brothers and sisters in the other assemblies. Some funds were held for leadership if they wanted or needed support, but always the poor. Some time ago, I did a deep dive into the numbers and came up with a possible solution. Not likely, but it's possible. But in one summary paragraph, church donations is estimated have spent about 70% to real estate and administration, 30% to programs and charitable causes. So if that was flipped and the Christian churches went back to the first century assembly model and they did 70% to the least of these and 30% support to the leadership, we would have $73 billion annually for the poor. Check out the numbers, which my husband helped me with because I get scrambled in the brain with big numbers. But we can do better. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to know your thoughts. And I just want to remind you, as always, to look for the blessings because they're all around you. Bye-bye.